We've now seen the first 2 shows of this year's Benidorm Fest, and the original field of 16 artists has now been whittled down to 8. Today we're talking about which artists we think are going to be winning the ticket to Malmo and representing Spain at this year's Eurovision Song Contest. From my point of view, there were 2 stars of the first semi-final, and one of them was expected to leave a good impression and qualify, and that would be Angy. We knew that she had performance experience and that she was going to be tapping into the crowd's nostalgia for her earlier work. And so there was very little doubt about her qualifying. Vocally, she was the strongest. She had great stage presence and was an engaging performer. You felt like you were in the moment with her when she was on stage. And so I would say that she even exceeded expectations in some ways. The other standout wasn't necessarily a surprise, but I don't think that many people were thinking that this was going to be the semi-final winner, and that was of course our favorite Zorra's Nebulossa. The big question was whether or not this was going to live up to the hype, because this song had really been having a moment leading up to the show. It topped the viral 50 chart in Spain, and the music video has 1.6 million views currently, so people were hoping that this was going to go well. Angy definitely had the edge from a vocal point of view, but Nebulossa put on a show that got everybody singing and dancing. And while it's clear to see from the stage show that they know the Benidorm Fest audience, it was still really entertaining, and it was the perfect way to end the show. Now with all that, it's not that surprising that this did well with the demoscopic jury and the televote coming 2nd and 3rd respectively, but I think very few people expected this to win the jury vote. To me, that was a huge surprise. Now with the other 2 qualifiers, Sofia Coll was a pretty safe bet to make it through. She had spent a lot of time in the lead up to Benidorm in the top 2 of the odds to win the entire show. Now that we've seen the live performance and the scoring, the likelihood of that happening is pretty low. The consensus seems to be that this just wasn't good enough, and it was expected that she was going to be among the stronger performers because of all the experience that she's had on other talent shows. But vocally, she was shaky, and from a visual point of view, it was not nearly as refined as other performances. Personally, I always had reservations about this song, at least with respect to it winning. I do think that it did deserve its qualification because it certainly wasn't the only performance that had shaky vocals and, was lacking visual impact. But at least the fans of the song will get one more opportunity to see it on the Benidorm Fest stage. Maybe the vocals will improve by Saturday, and that could at least give her better chances of going further. The last qualifier was less predictable than the other 3, and it ended up going to Miss Caffeina. What I think worked really well about this performance was how it was staged, because visually it was very clean. They had a really coordinated color scheme, and the camera angles and movement really captured the energy of the song. I would say that this was the best performance from a visual point of view, and because there weren't any obvious errors with the vocals, I can see why the jury supported this well enough to qualify. Before we move on to semifinal 2, we have to talk about one of the non-qualifiers, Mantra. They won the televote but still failed to qualify because of how the voting percentages are split and because of how the scores are distributed. Now, up to this point, I have a hard time disagreeing with the majority of results that we've seen at Benidorm Fest when we're talking about all 3 editions. And with this song, I don't think it's really anything more than nice and inoffensive. But as a matter of principle, I do think that this is a problem, and this might be the right opportunity to rethink the 50-25-25 voting split, or having a mixture of weighted points for the jury and fixed points for everything else. Of course, we could be tempting fate here by fiddling with the system, because the results so far at Eurovision have been better for Spain. And so, as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if the alternative is that the audience loses interest because they feel like their votes don't matter, then that can't be ignored either. So let's see if this fuels the conversation for a new and improved system. The winner of semifinal 2 was San Pedro, who was the bookmaker's favorite to win going into the show. Now, this performance needed 2 main things. It needed to focus on him, and it needed to be simple, and that was exactly what they did. I love how they made the stage disappear, and they used lighting to isolate all the elements, with him in the middle, and just having the addition of dancers as silhouettes in the background. Vocally, this also lived up to expectations. He performed beautifully, and it made him a real standout among all the acts of the night. Now, I'm a big supporter of this song winning. My one reservation is that I feel like it needs a splash of color, and by that I mean more than just one red rose. I like the idea of it being aesthetically minimal, but I think that focusing too much on just black and white really contrasts the warm sound that this song has, and especially when I think of the warmth that we saw in the visualizer with the bright sun and all the colors. if it had a little bit of that and then the rest was just black and white and silhouettes and all that, then I think this could actually be really, really refined. María Peláe entered this competition as one of the most well-known artists, and her qualification was pretty much guaranteed, especially considering the song that she was bringing and the power that it had, the fact that it was directly referencing Spain's history. There was a lot of reasons to think that this was going to go through. As a performance, it might not have been as flawless as people were expecting, but she still proved to be a powerful and poised singer, as you would expect from a flamenco artist. And I mean, the bar was pretty low for vocals anyway, so it was a non-issue. Visually, I really like how they used dancers to contribute to the storytelling. There were a number of moments where they were the focus that stand out in my mind, and it really communicated the sense of desperation that you feel in the song. I wasn't as big of a fan of the cinematography. I felt like the camera work was a bit too distant and restrained, and I feel like they could have gone further if they used the Steadicam more. This shot in particular is where I think things were working a lot better, and even with the lighting as well, we see more shadows on all of the subjects, which adds to the drama more than having flatter white light that we see in other parts. Another artist that was considered to be a likely qualifier was Jorge González, who had been teasing this really big show that he was bringing. He said that he had come to win, and now that we have seen the performance, we can at least say that he's won something, because he topped both the demoscopic jury and the televote. Now, with respect to the show, I can certainly acknowledge that there were some aspects that were well executed. It had a visual identity, it had an atmosphere that suited the song, you know, hot, steamy, sensual, so on and so forth, and the colors were very clean. I really, really liked that aspect of it. But beyond that, my overall feeling is that this was one big act of self-indulgence. Like, I really felt embarrassed watching this because of how hard it was trying to sell itself on sex appeal. And I mean, clearly it worked for some people, for the public, but I really can't blame the jury for ranking it so low because it was shameless and overcompensating for what it lacked. I mean, if we were talking about a stronger and more original song here, then some of it would be forgivable, but it's really generic and cliche, and considering the genre, which demands a big dance performance, the dancing was really static and in no ways impressive. Like, I wonder where he got the inspiration for this move. Anyway, I'm not a fan. Apparently I'm at odds with the Spanish public on this one, but I'm more at odds with the jury on our next qualifier. Almacor's song was among the most popular going into the show. It topped a lot of polls after the songs were released in December, and it was actually the clear favorite of the press poll based on the rehearsals that happened earlier in the day. The big question was whether or not the performance was going to live up to those expectations because of the nature of the song, the fact that it has a lot of vocal processing, and for the possibility for it to not come across the same way live. Well, yeah, not good. It was an eye-catching performance at least, and a part of that has to do with the fact that it used AI-generated images, but personally, I don't think that that compensates for the actual vocal performance. And as much as I might have my criticisms of Jorge, at least it sounded like a professional performance. Anyway, those are the finalists. At the end of the day, we have overall a good selection of qualifiers, and only one of these songs is going to be winning in the end. If it were up to me, my vote would be for San Pedro. I think that he's proved himself to be a really effective performer. He's got a beautiful song, and if they develop the staging a little bit, then I think it could be really successful at Eurovision. Let me know in the comments what you think about the 8 qualifiers and which one of them you would like to see represent Spain at Eurovision this year. And if you haven't done so already, I would love if you subscribe to the channel so that we can keep chatting about Eurovision as it approaches. As always, thank you so much for watching. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y nos vemos a la próxima. And I'll see you next time. Take care.